Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. Back with another vibe for all you, you know what I mean? Yes, it's cold out there, man. It's cold, I'm telling you. I am freezing my tropical butt off. I'm not a big fan of winter. I like the snow, but oh, I tell you, that cold is something else. But anyway, let's get to this video. Let's get to this video and see what I go on with it and take and take. This one is called The Real Land of the Vampires, of course. You know, where I'm from, there's werewolves, you know, the Sukuyan, the Garou, you know, all them kind of thing, them blood sucking thing there. Well, vampires. Seems like everything sort of stemmed from that because since the colonizers came from Europe, England and Spain and France and stuff, specifically, there's a little bit of, vampirism and thing go on there. So, this one is called, like I said, The Real Land of the Vampires. I say let's check it out and see what they're talking about, alright? Let's YouTube and simmer.
Warns locals that a vampire might be on the loose. Zarosier is a remote community with a rapidly falling population. There has never been much to say about the town, apart from the dark legend surrounding her. Just outside the town is a watermill lying in a state of ruin. It's unclear just how old the mill is, but it was in operation until the mid-20th century before it was left to fall apart. Legend tells it was abandoned after being taken over by a vampire known as Save Savanovic. On a dark night, he moved into the mill. When the mill owner came to collect grain, he killed and sucked their blood. When word of his presence got out, locals began avoiding the mill and it was never reopened. The mill's location was fitting of such a legend. Deep inside a narrow ravine, it was easy to avoid. But in 2012, the mill collapsed after decades of neglect, causing locals to wonder what would happen to the vampire it housed. Shortly before its collapse, the mill was purchased by a new owner, and that's just bad investing. But now isn't the time to talk about Serbian real estate. The mayor warns that Savanovic may now be on the hunt for a new home and new victims to feed on. He advised locals to hang garlic above their doors and windows. Garlic sales went through the roof and people even started washing with it, because apparently that isn't worse than death by vampire. It really seems that people of Zarosier believe vampires exist, that they roam the Serbian countryside freely on an endless hunt for new blood.
Land of the Vampires.
Save Savanovic is by far the most notorious vampire in Serbian folklore, but he was not the first. The word vampire is thought to have come from Serbia, spreading to Western Europe when Austria conquered the Balkans centuries ago. For a long time, people in the region would have a metal rod stabbed through their chest before being given a funeral to prevent them from rising again as a vampire. It was such a common practice that over 100 skeletons have been found in such condition just in Bulgaria. Well into the 1800s, similar precautions were taken. Some rich families would have deceased members shot through the heart with silver bullets. By medieval times, vampire lore was commonly believed within the Balkans, but it's unclear who the first person to be accused of being a vampire was. The first individual vampire to appear on historical records might have been Jure Grando. He was a young villager from what is now Croatia. Grando died of an unknown illness and was swiftly buried, but unforeseen by his community, Grando would soon arise from the grave as something else. It is said that for 16 years following his death, he would emerge from his grave by night to hunt for blood. Countless locals were killed by Grando, answering a knock at the door only to find death on the other side. Before long, words got out that he was on the loose, but they didn't call him a vampire. He was more known as a strigoi, a sort of vampire-warlock hybrid. Witnesses said it was as if he was smiling with joy while gasping for air at the same time. They said the smell of decaying flesh would travel with him, and he seemed somewhere between dead and alive. A local man tried to slay the strigoi by stabbing it through the heart with a wooden stake, but the stake bounced off his chest as if it was made of rubber. The next day, he took 8 others to the town graveyard and dug up his coffin. Inside, they found a perfectly preserved corpse, as if in 16 years no decay had set in. But again, they failed to pierce Grando's flesh with wood, so they cut off his head and burnt it. Never again would Vat Strigoi walk the earth. This is widely considered the first recorded case of a vampire, but it would not be the last. From Save Savanovic to Yusuf Fusi, history has seen many other vampires. In 1729, a Serbian peasant died in the small village of Kisilova. Not long after his death, others in Kisilova began to die mysterious deaths. On their deathbeds, each claimed that man had visited them after his burial. According to each of their stories, that man had visited them at night and demanded they give him something. Within a week of his burial, 9 people had died. He was Peter Blagievich, a quiet man who while alive caused no harm to anyone, but now even his son claims to have been visited by his dead father. He said Blagievich demanded food, and in a state of fear he handed food over, but the next night he came back for blood, murdering the son and draining his corpse. This murder was the final straw. They had learned the hard way that vampires can be bloody annoying. They contribute nothing to society. Some would call them the worst kind of squatter, and so locals decided to exhume Blagievich's coffin to examine him. At first the local priest refused to allow it, but with the town growing ever more scared, he stepped back. When the coffin was opened, they saw a fully preserved corpse with fresh blood on his lips. His hair, beard and nails had grown significantly. It was as if he was still alive. They drove a wooden stake through his heart and saw more blood flow from his mouth, eyes and ears. His corpse was then burned and garlic sprinkled throughout the cemetery. Only after this was the community safe from their resident vampire, but it was just the beginning of the story. At this point in time, Serbia was part of the Austrian Empire, meaning European newspapers took interest in the event. News of a bloodthirsty undead Serbian monster rapidly spread through the continent, causing a vampire hysteria that lasted for much of the 18th century. The Austrian government even sent a commission to investigate if vampires really did exist in Serbia, and as far west as the United States, incidents of vampires were reported. 1 year later, another case emerged from the Balkans, and people started to wonder if there are any Serbians who aren't vampires, the answer to which is no. It was widely believed vampirism was caused by...
Are they doing the same kind of thing to the Serbians that they did to, let's say, the Africans? By demonizing them, by things like that. You know, I always think I'll go back home and go up into the mountains and just live and don't want to have to deal with any human beings. I could see it now. I could see it now. He's a Ligaroo. He's working OBI. Get him. I don't think they're gonna say get him, but you know, there's gonna be fear and angst, you know, against me being up there by myself, you know, and then not having any family or nothing like that around. I could see it happening because I know growing up as a kid, a lot of people were deemed Ligaroos and Sukuyas and stuff, and it's usually older people who live by themselves, not messing with anybody, not bugging anybody, but they seem mysterious. There's no way to explain them, so stories come up about them, and this possibly could be that situation.
A mysterious plague spreading through Europe, one that could turn anyone into a bloodthirsty monster who would by night feed on any living creature they find, be it a sheep or human. In 1732, the Austrian investigation was published. The report told the story of a man called Arnold Paoli. Paoli was an irregular soldier traveling across Serbia to find work fighting the Ottomans, but wherever he went, he was followed by a vampire. The monster stalked Paoli for years, driving him mad until he followed it back to its grave and ate dirt from that grave. Within a week, he was dead, and within a fortnight of that, he had risen as a vampire himself. At first it was just livestock that fell victim to him, but after several locals were found dead in similar fashion, people began to suspect a vampire was at large. The only person to be buried leading up to the incident was Arnold Paoli. When his corpse was exhumed, fresh blood was found smeared over his face. This confirmed the suspicions of those examining his corpse, and a wooden stake was driven into his chest. Blood poured from his chest, mouth and eyes, and Paoli let out a terrifying scream before dying a final time. According to the report, this was the end of Arnold Paoli. Many took the report as legitimate evidence for the existence of vampires. It was, after all, the official report of an Austrian military doctor, and so the controversy that had been long brewing now exploded into an international vampire scare. The scare lasted an entire generation, with French intellectuals taking specific interest in it. In 1764, Voltaire wrote, Vampires were corpses who went out of their graves at night to suck the blood of the living, either at their throats or stomachs, after which they returned to their cemeteries. He was not the only acclaimed author to look into vampirism, yet still belief in vampires waned with other superstitions of the time. The scare came to be known as the 18th century vampire controversy, and belief in vampires would largely only flare up in the event of other scares in coming centuries, like the New England vampire panic of the late 19th century. Its origins lie in an outbreak of tuberculosis in New England. After a while, rumors emerged that tuberculosis was caused by vampires drinking your blood at night. As the disease spread, people began to panic and vampires were blamed. Like in Europe, corpses were dug up and burned. Around this same time, Irish author Bram Stoker got hold of a copy of the Austrian doctor's report from over a century before. It obviously had an impact on him as he went on to write Dracula. Dracula was published in London in 1897, and by this time Western European society put little faith in the existence of vampires. But in the eastern corner of Europe it was a different story, where there were still and are still many in rural Serbia who believe in vampires.
But how else can we explain these terrible deaths? Von Eltz last night, 5 others before him, that's 6 within as many weeks, Inspector. Our friends, neighbors that we'd known for years, drained of their life's blood, found dead in bed, lifeless skeletons of skin and bone. Vampires are at large, I tell you, vampires.
Malignant demons who issue forth from their graves in the dead of night to attack their victims and drink the blood.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it here. But check the vibe out, man. Did you see that they keep saying, how do we explain these deaths? How do we explain these diseases? How do we explain this? It's make me start to think that that mythology and the stories that comes from things like this, today's conspiracy theories have replaced that stuff. I think about it. Years from now, when people look back and they hear these conspiracy theories that's going on, the big reptilian people or the Illuminati or the whatever it is. Now, I call it conspiracy theories. I don't know what they don't call it. Please don't kill me. But conspiracy theories kind of replace stories like the vampires and the folklores and all of that, because there's always a big bad conspirator or whatever you might want to call it that's creating these situations, unexplained situations for people. You know what I mean? It's kind of like even governments have now become part of that folklore. The government is planning this, so they start this virus to kill off this person and to kill off this person. In the meantime, people everywhere are dying and nobody could explain it, and we don't have a cure for it or nothing like that. You know what I mean? I would love to find something that told what people thought was happening during the plague. And of course, there's history too, because the Spanish flu of the early 18, 15, 18, whatever that was. How did people explain it? Was there conspiracy theories that come along? And I'm gonna do some research, and maybe there's some YouTube videos about that, and we gonna do reaction to that, so we can compare what they were thinking then to what they're thinking now. See if there's any similarities. Because remember, there's never an original thought, as far as I'm concerned. It's just that you thought about it, but you have no clue if somebody else have thought about it before, because we've been here so long, especially when it's a sociological, cultural, political thing. Maybe not technology, because all this stuff is new. We think. But anyway, man, thank you all for checking this out with me. A thing, man. I've always been fascinated by vampires and stuff, but I never really delve into the whole vibes. And just like I was saying in the beginning, see, all that started off in Eastern Europe, and then it's sort of spread out, to the rest of Europe. And of course, once Europe start colonizing or have colonized, it spread from there. You know what I mean? And infiltrated other cultures, especially the cultures of misplaced people. But I'm babbling, man. But it's really interesting, isn't it? Ooh, that stuff is nicer than Tristan. But anyway, listen, I'm gonna leave a link in the description of this video. Go check it out. See what else this channel have and thing about vibe like that. You know what I mean? And thing. And hey, keep watching. Just click that box there, man, and keep watching, you know, because I'm going to keep pumping out these things, man. I love history. All I did when I was a kid was read about stuff about olden times and how it would feel for me to be there, you know what I mean? We got to be inquisitive. And check this out. Check this out. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you come from. In essence, we tend to make the same mistakes if we don't learn from the past mistakes. Boom! Have a good night or good day or whatever you are, wherever you are, alright? Cool runnings.